Hello and welcome to this free mandolin lesson, especially aimed at beginners this week, but also valid for intermediate players or anyone who has ever struggled to reach what we call the Bluegrass Chop chord. And if you've never heard that phrase, the Bluegrass Chop chord looks like this. It's a massive stretch for your little finger. It's even a bigger stretch for your ring finger. So, especially in the early days of playing your mandolin, you will not be able to reach that chord. It can take 6 months to a year for your hand to stretch that. And I have had recent examples of people who've actually done some damage to their hands because they've tried to reach the chop chord. And I'm here to show you that there are alternatives to the chop chord that do exactly the same job. Everything we talk about in this lesson is included in a free PDF, which is in the video description below, and that has all the chord charts in that we're going to talk about. Before we look at the alternatives, we need to establish exactly what the Bluegrass Chop chord is achieving. So let's hear an example of it in action over the standard session song, Bluegrass Cabin Home. I'm going to grab the guitar, we'll split screen it, and you can hear like a guitar mandolin, and unfortunately me singing the chorus to Bluegrass Cabin Home, and listen to the role that the chop chord is doing. Those hills of old Virginia, in those Blue Ridge hills I go. When I die, won't you bury me on the mountain, far away in my Blue Ridge cabin home? If you were to count the beats, what's happening there, and with my bass and strum rhythm, I'm playing very strong notes on beats 2 and 4. So I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's my first job. The rest of the bluegrass band want me to emphasise beats 2 and 4. And then with the Bluegrass Chop chord, what you're able to do is chop the sound. So you hit the notes and then instantly release the pressure with your left hand. And the quicker you do that, the shorter the sound you get, or you chop the sound short, I think I like to think of it, and you get a really chopped chord that sounds really sharp. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to emulate the snare drum. In a drum kit, you've got the bass drum that's hitting 1 and 3, and the snare drum generally hits 2 and 4, so it's like cat, cat. And we, as mandolin players, are the snare drum in the band, and if you're in a bluegrass band, the bass player is the bass drum. So you've got an cat, cat between the bass and the mandolin, just like you do on the drum kit. The reason we play a bass and strum pattern is just to make sure that it means you're hitting something on every beat, so you can kind of feel the beat with your right hand. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. But as long as you still have a strong beat on 2 and 4 and a nice short chord, that's the job that the Bluegrass Chop chord is doing. And now let's look at some alternatives. I have got 4 different options for you in this lesson. There are a few others, but I'm just going to look at 4. And we're going to start with basically lesson 1 of playing the mandolin. So this is really for beginner players. There is nothing wrong with accompanying songs like that with open chords. Guitarists get to do it. Guitarists are allowed to play open chords and have things ringing out, have strings ringing out. So why can't we as mandolin? As long as you keep the bass and strum rhythm to make sure that your strongest beats are 2 and 4, you still do a very good job in the bluegrass band. So now our chop chords are replaced with your simple G, C and D. So with Blue Ridge Cabin Home, and I've included the chord chart, but it's basically 4 Gs, 4 Cs, 4 Ds, 4 Gs, twice round. Let's have a quick jam along with that, me singing the melody on the guitar, and you can hear how that sounds with just open chords instead of chop chords. 1, 2, 3, 4. Love those hills of old Virginia, from those Blue Ridge hills I did roam. When I die, won't you bury me on to see the mountain, far away in my Blue Ridge cabin home. So as you can hear, that is a perfectly valid way of playing some chords in a bluegrass jam session. I was not ruining the song, I wasn't interrupting the guitar player, I was actually just more matching what the guitarist is doing. So for anyone who says you have to be playing the Bluegrass Chop chord to play in a bluegrass band, they are wrong. You can play those chords. You are still emphasising beats 2 and 4 in the bar with those chords. Okay, so for slightly better players, let's look at some other options we can do that actually brings in this chopped chord sound, this nice and short chord. And the first thing we do, I think, C and D are not the worst chords to reach. The 5-2-3 and the 7-4-5-D. So let's maybe keep those because we're not having to stretch all the way over with our little finger. So let's keep the C and D as they are. So let's just change the G shape that we have. So instead of 7-5-2-3, why not we go for 4-5-2? That's also a G chord. It's a B, it's a G, and it's a B. So we've only got B and G, but it still works as a G chord. And with that, what you've got now is no open strings. It may not be the most ideal chord, but you can at least hit it and take the pressure off. Still get that short sound, the chop sound. So just try that now. So I'm playing middle finger, ring finger, and index finger, so pinky finger's not needed. So that's just a G chord, and if I compare it to the normal chop chord, still doing the same job. It's a G chord, it's the notes of a G chord, nice and short, and on 2 and 4. So let's try that along with the guitarist, previous mic, and see how that sounds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Love those hills of old Virginia. From down to D. Blue Ridge Hills, I live. Back to our new G. When I die, won't you bury me on the same mountain? Far away in my Blue Ridge cabin home. I think that's a fairly good replacement for the chop chord for me. You just have to get used to that new G shape. And obviously that could be moved down to A, or B flat if you need it. Option 3 is basically half of the chop chord, and I have to give credit to Ben Winship, who's an amazing Idaho-based mandolin player. I was in a workshop that he ran about 15, 16 years ago over here in the UK, and his theory that the really nice sounds of the chop chord come from the lower 2 notes, the 7 and the 5. That's where the meat and the substance of the chop chord comes from. The higher notes on the D and the A string, this B and G, you quite often can't even hear them. So you're reaching all the way down for these important notes. And you can't really hear that. So why not just play it as a double stop, just 7 and 5, and you can either do it with your middle finger or index finger, or I would probably consider doing it with ring and middle. You do have to work hard not to hit the A string. If your finger's long enough, you could reach the back for the 2nd fret as well. So just do the lower 3 notes, but you could get away with just doing... Hear how that sounds? Compared to... It's still doing the Bluegrass Chop chord job. So, just like the previous examples, let's try it along with Blue Ridge Cabin Home and see what you think of that option. 2, 3, 4. Love those hills of old Virginia. From those Blue Ridge Hills I did roam. When I die, won't you bury me on the mountain? Far away in my Blue Ridge cabin home. As you can hear, that is a perfectly valid way of playing the chop chord, as long as you get a nice bounce and keep that chord, the pressure off at the right time. That's quite hard to get the timing of that cutting the note short, but that, as a little double stop, is a perfect valid replacement of the chop chord for those struggling to reach. I have one more option, and this is a last resort scenario. For example, if you don't know the chords, or your hand's absolutely really tired, sort of done enough, you've done 2 hours of reaching a normal chord, and you want to play along, but you just want a little rest. you can just deaden the strings. So you just rest your fingers across and you create that sound. Because you may lose the element of notes, but you can still emphasize beats 2 and 4, and you can certainly start to sound even more like a snare drum. You know, you've got the guitarist to play the notes, why not just be the accompaniment? It seems a little daft, but I've actually been in sessions, or I've been in recording sessions where that's what the producer wanted. They just wanted a dead sound from the mandolin. So let's hear how that sounds against a guitarist singing it. And I'm going to speed it up a little bit because it makes more sense in a faster tune. 1, 2, 3, 4. Love those hills of old Virginia, in those Blue Ridge hills I go. When I die, won't you bury me on the mountain, far away in my Blue Ridge cabin home? Not an ideal replacement to the full chop chord, but still could do you a job if you're in a session where you're a little unsure, wanted to play along but didn't want to get in anyone's way. So there you have your 4 different options to replace the chop chord, and people hold the chop chord in such high regard. You know, I've heard of people who lesson 1 were trying to reach the chop chord, and it is just not possible. It's such a stretch for your hand, and for some people it never will suit your hand shape. That little finger reaching all the way down to that 7th fret. So please do consider the options I've given you today. No one would bat an eyelid if you were in a session and you were playing your G like this, like option 2, instead of the chop chord. As long as we think of those main principles, which is emphasize beats 2 and 4, and a nice short chord, nice short note. And whether you achieve that with the chop chord, with the alternative G shape, or the G double stop, I think the option 2 and 3 were my favoured ones. And then of course for beginner players, you can play your open chords, or worst case scenario, just give me some dead notes. So different options, don't hurt your hand, please do not overstretch. Use what I've given you in this video and just enjoy any bluegrass jam session. For intermediate players, your challenge is to move this to other keys, so try this in A. But all the principles apply. Beats 2 and 4, nice and short. Thank you for watching. We do these lessons every month, so please hit like and subscribe while you're here, or head over to mandomike.com for all the other previous 5 years of free lessons that we've done on this YouTube channel, and we'll see you next month.